Welcome to HomeWord. I'm Jim Burns. I'm smiling today because this is going to be an incredible podcast. So honored that you're listening to HomeWord, and I'm so honored that you would join us. It's, like I said, going to be a very good one. Charlotte Guest is with us, and we're actually going to talk about empty nest success. And I can't think of a better person to be a part of this program. Now, don't go away if you're a young parent, because you know what? Most people who go into the empty nest say they were not prepared for it. And I know that was Kathy's in my place. We were in shock because we were so busy with our kids and so busy doing stuff. And then one day it was an empty nest and we went, what is going on here? So Charlotte's going to help us with all wisdom about how to have empty nest success. You want to listen to it even if you have little kids. Now, the empty nest, I just mentioned it, but I had no idea what I was doing in the empty nest. I just want to tell you, okay, we love our kids. We put so much energy into life with our kids. And then one day we dropped our daughter Heidi off. She's our youngest at college. And we drove home. I'll talk about it at the end of the podcast, but we drove home and kind of went, okay, now what do we do with the rest of our life, right? So, what we're going to talk about today is how to have success in the empty nest, but you don't have success in the empty nest if you don't plan and have some purpose and have a mission on it. So Charlotte Guest is going to help us, like I said, straighten all of this out. She has a wonderful podcast, and I've had the privilege to be on it. It's called Empty Nest Guests. So there's no pun in that since her last name is Guest. I love that. I love the podcast. I love what she does. And she will take us toward, in that podcast, but also in the conversation today, how to have joy in the challenges that we have with the empty nest, and how to really have a joyful and a full life in this season. So she's married to Gordy, and he's a great guy. They've been married for over 35 years. They live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You're going to catch a hint in a moment of this incredible, I call it an accent. People in Tulsa probably don't. And she's got three lovely adult children and two grandchildren, but I have a feeling there's going to be more on the way. So Charlotte, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor. My guests love you. They sometimes email me and say, "Get that Jim guy back
That
on. He's
that
awesome."
that gym guy. What's amazing is we're actually having a conversation, and we had a scheduling difference, and you're actually willing to come on with really thinking you were going to come on another day. So this is a privilege for us to
You
have you
know,
on.
worked out okay. I tell you what, empty nesting, you gotta be adaptable and you gotta sometimes you just go, "Okay, this is what we'll do." But it's an honor to be with you. Thank you. Thank you for helping me
It,
as
it,
you've helped me and
it
my family.
Well, it's kind of funny. Kathy and I did a marriage conference this last weekend, and a lot of times she doesn't speak, but she spoke at this one, and one of them was on positive adaptability and how flexibility is so important in a marriage and in life and with your kids. And now we're watching you play this thing out. Hey, listen, I've got a question for you that's actually related to some of my younger listeners. Um, we're talking about empty nest here, but like I said, very few prepare. What kind of advice would you give to a younger listener who, I mean, maybe they have teens or maybe they have even younger kids, but how would you say we should prepare for the empty nest?
That's a great question. I was very fortunate in my life as I was doing this parenthood thing to have this precious mentor in my life named
Mm,
Shirley Stairs, who's in heaven
mm,
now.
mm,
She was on one of my podcasts and
mm,
you know, she just kept encouraging all of us. If you are following closely with the Lord, holding his hand, seeking his will every single day, he's going to walk out how you need to do this time with your kids. And I would just encourage all of the younger listeners to think about the time that you really have left, and they're his kids. First of all, that was a perspective that really helped me. It
mm.
wasn't like these were,
Love that.
Gordy and I had these kids. The Lord gave us these three kids and somehow miraculously moved them through my body and put them into our family to shape and mold to enter this great big world, and
Mm,
that they have a purpose, they have a plan. How did we do this as team guests? But to just remember that, you're really releasing them to do more of what God has. And so I think that perspective was helpful, but to just look at the time, and there's a great thing that I'm trying to do these days is ask the Lord every day, what is necessary for
mm,
this day?
Mm,
And I just heard that advice a little bit later, like after I became an empty nester. And
yeah,
it's kind of strange because as an empty nester, you have a lot more time.
right.
And so with this downtime, if you don't ask what's necessary, you can kind of twiddle your thumbs a little bit, or you can have some some time that's not filled unless you're caring for an aging parent or a grandchild. But some of that downtime is hard to fill
Mm,
sometimes for some people at the beginning.
right.
But I wish I would have known to ask the question every day of the Lord, just, Lord, what is necessary for today?
Yeah, I love
and
that.
and all these things that we think. I loved the time in the car with my kids and
Mm,
talking to them
mm,
about different things. And
yeah,
I would really encourage all the listeners, if you are not having a table time that is sacred in your family,
mm,
even if there were times when our kids were soccer, baseball, cheer, volleyball,
right,
grabbed the wrong duffel bag, got their other kids' knee pads. I
right.
mean, it was crazy. And so dinner was not happening for us. And you know what we decided to do? We did like family dessert at 9 o'clock. And
Hey,
somebody might have popcorn, somebody might have had Eskimo sandwich, whatever. I don't even remember what all the kids ate. But we gathered our family and we sat around that table and we looked into each other's eyes. And it was mainly just to say, this team guest isn't going to always be
yeah.
here.
You
So
know,
grab time.
it's a great idea because a study recently out of Columbia University said that if people will have 5 dinners a week, and what you're saying is we couldn't get to 5 dinners. Well, they don't really mean like official dinner, but if they will have 5 times around a table a week, less
Yes.
sexual promiscuity, less involved in drug and alcohol abuse, and actually get better grades and obviously closer family ties. Now, the dessert is a great idea because who doesn't want the dessert of their choice? You just named
Sure.
every dessert that I like, and I must be hungry. I didn't have lunch today, so I'm hungry. So I want all of those desserts. But what I'm saying is you're proactive to release them, and and yet you're also talking about, you know, really making sure that you're in a healthy place. Now, Kathy, my wife, and she doesn't mind me talking about this because it's a part of her story. But when our girls, and we have all girls, so of course we had no hormones or drama. We had a lot of cheerleading. We didn't have a lot of football. Well, we had football because we're at
Sure.
watching the cheerleader. But Kathy was kind of the sun, and my 3 girls were the planets revolving around the sun. And then I think in our home, I was kind of the other planet, if you would. And one day there's no planets revolving around, and she
Mm.
kind of went into what she would call the empty nest syndrome, but it was kind of times of like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Somewhat, she's not a real depressive person, but she said she kind of felt more depressed, like, what's going on now in my life? What do you say to the person who enters the empty nest and they feel lost?
Yeah. It is hard because you do, especially when that last one leaves. I,
Mhm.
I did all right. Each one, the first two were kind of close together. And then when that third one, she was 4 years younger than everyone else. When she left, our situation was a little different because I had a crazy neck surgery and we moved. And so those were two things that a lady that I talked to about lots of things, a therapist that I'll talk to, said that for me, I was having to react to things instead of plan because that surgery was really hard.
Yeah, sure.
But, I think just leaning in and really taking my cues of the what is necessary thing is still helpful. But if you feel lost and you feel that depression, there's definitely things that women need to do because whoever thought empty nesting coincides with menopause? For us, it's
Right.
just a rough thing. So, you need to check your health, make sure you're okay, that you're
Mhm.
healthy, check your
Yeah,
hormones, check all your blood levels, and talk to other people that are in the
yeah,
situation that
sure.
you're in. And if you're feeling lost, I think what I've seen on my show when I talk to different empty nesters that's really unfortunate is a lot of women will feel really lost, and a lot of men are processing and they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, we did this, we got these kids ready and they're doing great and they're out." And then the woman is on the other side of the little teeter-totter going, "But I'm down here and you're up here." And you feel
Yeah.
like you can't talk about it. That's what I've seen with a lot of women is you need to make sure you're talking about how you feel. That will help you feel less lost.
That's so good. And you actually mentioned men and women, and it's funny, it was my next question for you because you did a show where you interviewed somebody on the differences men and
Mhm.
women have when they enter the empty nest. I know for Kathy, she felt what I just described. For me, I just went to work earlier and I went to work
Right.
later, and it was I mean, I missed my girls big time,
Mhm.
and yet I didn't have the same what I would call empty nest syndrome until I really realized, no, I'm not handling this good. Why do I need to go to work at 7 now instead of at 8? And why do I need to stay till 7 instead of, 5 or 6 or whatever? What kind of advice can you give to somebody? You talked about feelings. Obviously, for a woman, I agree with you.
Mhm.
Boy, hormones, but also they're going through. They may be taking care of a elderly parent. They may be taking care
Yes.
of other types of issues. There might be some finance problems, all kinds of things. But for the man and woman, you see the differences. What are some more of those differences, and what kind of practical help can you give us?
I think what I've seen in interviewing a lot of empty nesters, talking to a lot of empty nesters, it's like the woman expects the man to understand how she feels without using her words. And so, women, I really encourage you to say, this is how I feel, and it's really hard, and I want to share that with you. And then the man to take a minute to really listen and think, even though he doesn't feel that way,
Yeah,
that is so valid. And there are lots of women that get up and go to work and their days stay the same. But many people, the work was trying to get three human beings
right,
ready for the
right,
next phase of life,
right.
and things can come to a halt really quickly.
Yeah,
The best advice that Gordy and I got is that I had a way that I was processing. Gordy had a way, but we had to lean into the way. And we had to think about Jesus, how would he live? How would he do this? How would
mm,
he love
mm,
well? How would he
mm.
how can I love Gordy and not think that Gordy's wrong because he's going to work and he's thrilled that his kids are out and they're doing well and they've gone
Yeah,
somewhere, and then he also would think, honey, he would say, "How was your day?" But then he would follow up with, "How are you feeling? How are
mm,
you feeling
mm,
today?"
mm.
It wasn't like a blanket, "How was your day?" And then I would
Yeah,
say, "Fine." And then, that worked well when three kids were swirling around and you're trying
right.
to get everybody out the door. But
Yeah,
just to remember that there's no one right way. And if we follow the way, then we're going to figure each
yeah.
other out a little better.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. Now there's and when you think about empty nest, a lot of times we think about couples, but there are single empty nesters as well, and they've
Mhm.
had some big time losses because they lose. Talk about quiet. I was on I do a radio show called New Life Live quite often, and I did 2 shows this morning, and I was talking with one of the therapists who's also on it, and she's a single parent. She said when my kids left, it was there was no it was totally quiet because I didn't have my husband there anymore, and so she was talking about that loss, the loss of feeling it with her husband, the loss of feeling, her kids being gone. And another woman said to me that, what she did for the first week was she just curled up, watched television, and ate a half a gallon of ice cream every day. So
Yeah.
obviously you don't want to do that. Any advice to the single empty nester from just your experience?
Yes, I have 6 friends that
Mm,
are widows. I never
mm,
thought that we would be there in our life. I'm
yeah,
56, my husband's 57. We have several friends that are a little bit older, and I have watched every single one of these women. They have done so incredibly well
mm,
because they have Jesus at the center of their life,
yeah,
and so their faith is
yeah,
so important. But I've also watched these women, now I do have 2 or 3 friends that went through really rough divorces too.
mm,
So that's another kinda empty
yeah,
because it's a loss they didn't see coming.
right,
But I would say, there are lots of other women out there experiencing that if you can find them and connect and share stories and find, it's so hard. My friends have said you kind of want all this to come to you, but watching their intentionality of, I can either have this and be sad a lot, or I can be
so good.
proactive and find a group, find something to
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
You don't want to say the trite response of find a pottery class, but for a lot of people, find
good,
something that you've
right,
always been interested in
right,
and remind yourself that you are so worth it. You have a lot
right,
of life to live, and
right.
these kids are going to respect the heck out of you if you're strong and you're leaning into what is your what's next. The Lord has great things for you in store too.
Yeah, that's great advice, and it's interesting that every answer, you keep kind of coming back to, putting energy into their faith, and
Mhm.
that really is the part that sometimes people don't put the energy in, and so when, a single whether it be a single empty nester or not, as they put their energy into their faith and as they find more meaning and the God's call in their life, it really does kind of put some of these other things together. Hey, Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and then all these other things will be added." And I think that that
Yes.
does work for it. In terms of marriage, one of the things, and you and I have talked about this on your program, but in terms of marriage, what we're always saying is we have to rekindle romance. A lot of times these couples, what happens is they've been so busy trying to get their kids to get through the teen years that they sort of bury things, they put it under the mat. The graying of divorce is real because the
Yes.
divorce rate is, over 50 is the demographic is going, crazy. And some are dealing with kids who are, struggling with, there's estrangement. I just heard 25%. I need to check this, but I just heard 25% of adult kids are estranged with at least one parent or another. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But that means it puts stress on the marriage. You and Gordy, you've always talked about this, and I doubt if you guys have the perfect marriage, but man, you really
No.
like this
No,
guy.
we
And then
don't.
then I was on
We
a
love each
program of
other.
yours with him, and I went, "Wow, I like this guy." Not that I'm not jealous, but I mean, what a wonderful man. But what did you
Thank
do
you.
to enhance your marriage in the empty nest?
We definitely read, what to do. We, remembered the advice. We hit a really big valley early on in our marriage when our kids were really young, and
Mhm.
so we were in great counseling for about a
Mhm.
year.
Yeah, good.
And what was so helpful for us is we went back to, okay, we don't want to go back to that valley year, and we don't want to wonder how the other person is doing. And so there's a lot of intentionality,
Yeah.
and he does a phone call every night still to this day. That was something that we learned in counseling. It's kind of the pulse of the day, like
Mm,
calls on his way home. He's got about a
mm,
25-minute drive,
mm.
and he's like, "How's the day? How's it been? Let's talk it." And it's a nice thing. So that for us that works because he has the drive home. We have a date night, and we had a really good one. This past Friday, we I had read a book and it was kind of a theme in it that was fun, but we came up with some of our top 5 moments
Mm.
from literally when we started dating, and we had to write them down and we took them to dinner.
Ah,
And we had gotten in a little bit of a rut. Like it's so easy to watch your
yeah.
favorite show or watch your have dinner in front of the TV. But our check in and our little first 30 when he gets home, we try to just have the first 30 minutes to just
So
what's going on. And it's okay to talk about the kids. It's okay to talk about work, but to just sit and listen to each other and be
right.
together. And
That is so
you
good.
have to be intentional.
I actually wrote that down. I'm gonna try this with Kathy because I think that's really a good idea to remember those, those top moments.
It
And,
was so
yeah,
fun. Oh my
so
gosh, and
no,
we coincided on some, and then he thought of one, and I was like, "I don't remember that at all." And he, had one, and he was like, "Are you sure that was me?" We kinda laughed about that,
that
but it was
that's so
fun to
funny. No,
think
that's
back
good.
to young dating. It was
Sure.
exciting. Yeah.
No, that's neat, and to kinda see milestones in your relationship and remember them. We've done that, and it's been really cool. Well,
Mhm.
we'll have to we'll try that. Sometimes ours doesn't work as well when we come home because Kathy 3 days a week watches our 2 grandkids. We have 4, but 2 of the grandkids.
So
So
great.
I come home, and typically they're still there, and, it's just like what it was when they were when we had our own kids 'cause Kathy just kinda goes, "Here, can you take them?"
Yes.
I need a break, and I, of course, love that because that's what it's all about. I just, the other day, I was at my daughter's house, my other daughter, who we don't always watch their kids, but they have 2 kids. They live in Los Angeles, and we live in Orange County, so it's about an hour and 20-minute, walk ride, and I came walking into their house, and I said, "Huxley, Bodie," and my daughter said, "Dad, I'm here too, you know?"
Oh, that's right, it's
I
terrible to do that.
I
I
said,
had a
"Oh"
friend that said, when your grandchild is born, and we have 2 new ones now, to
Yeah.
make sure, especially with your daughter-in-law, so
Oh, yeah.
people all over, make sure if your daughter-in-law is
So
holding
true.
the baby to make sure you say her name first and
Exactly.
then go to the
Yeah.
baby, and that's so hard to
Oh,
do,
that
but
is so good. Yeah, I'm really trying to work on that. Well, great input. Listen, we're gonna take a quick break. We're talking with Charlotte Guest. She's our guest today, no pun intended on that. And, she has a great podcast, and it's called Empty Nest Guests. And I challenge you to go to it. All of the information about her mission and her ministry and herself, it's on our show notes, and so you can always take a look at that. And I really suggest that you get involved. When we come back, we're going to talk about friendship. So key. Don't go away. Friendship, and we're also going to talk about how do you develop a mission in life, your mission in life, both in the empty nest, but even from before. And we'll even tell you a way at the end how you can get a free document on her website that is awesome. I just looked through it. So we'll be right back. More to come on Homeward. Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. Great conversation today with Charlotte Guest. We're talking about empty nest success. And, who doesn't want success in the empty nest? I've often said that games are won in the second half, not in the first half. But for those of you who aren't in the empty nest yet, the first half's important because you got to build that foundation. And I'm imagining you're getting a lot out of this as I am. I'm actually taking notes on her right now. Charlotte, I read something that you had written, and I know you have a book coming out where you talk more about this, but about friendships. And I thought it was interesting because I really related that you lost some friendships when you went into the empty nest because all of a sudden now kids aren't, at the friends who were at the games or the friends who, were at the events or around the school activities, they kind of split apart. We had some of that. Some of it we kind of stayed with it, but we lost some of that. But I'm also told over and over again by people, I wrote a book called Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. And the more I would talk to people, they would say, we found our best friends after 50. We never dreamed that was going to happen. So talk to us about friendship in the empty nest.
Friendship is something that I've been studying a little bit because I felt like it was important to do a dive in and see, like, okay, we have some friends who I they just gave our daughter a little sip and see, a little party to see the grandchild, and they were the same friends that changed my daughter's diapers. So it was
Amazing.
just this surreal,
So cool.
beautiful thing. So you have those, I would call those your gold friendships. They are solid, they hold your jewels, they're with you. And then you have some that were transactional
Yeah.
friends, and hey, can you drive the kids to soccer? And sure, I'll do that. And there wasn't a lot of reciprocity as far as sharing the hardships of raising a family. You just needed a ride to soccer, or you
Yeah.
needed
Right.
you needed somebody to head to choir with, or you did this, and it was still fun to
Yeah.
see those. And like, we even loved some, oh my gosh, when baseball finished up for our son, we didn't see as many of those people. But I look back and I think what we had was so fun, and it was so game related,
Right.
and there wasn't a whole lot of deep. There was with some, and I don't want to take anything away, especially if baseball friends ever listen to this. Those were some dear, dear times, but there was a lot of situational and a lot of transactional.
Right. Right.
And then as I, you hope, if you're a Christian, that you're maturing in your walk and you're maturing in your faith every day. So you can grow up a lot. I sure did. Listeners, I don't know if you did, but from age 30 to 50, I'm sure the Lord is like, whoo, Charlotte, I needed to really, really raise you up as a mom. There are people that don't align with the purpose that God has for you now.
Yeah.
And they might be believers, they might be doing something, but I've seen kind of this maturation. And Gordy and I really started praying, Lord, here we are. Who do you want us to be friends with? Is it new people? Do we need to be open to that? How do we deepen those that we really want to see? And so I think just involving the Lord in that. And one thing I learned was, I thought this was the coolest thing. Well, the Jesus model is so awesome. I mean, you can't barely do life with more than 12 people,
Hmm.
and you're going to have four. And in those four, they're probably going to let you down, just like his best friends did and the disciples.
Sure.
But if you look at a ruler and you look at it horizontally and you look at that 12, it's hard to do all that super deep. But if you take that and you flip that and you look at that ruler vertically,
So good.
those top four are really key, because you're going to enter into some hardships with your parents. You're going to have kids that aren't going to do everything right all the time. You're going to have a job that maybe changes. We had a friend who absolutely out of nowhere, retirement happened. He wasn't planning on it. And so you can't do things at the surface level with 12 anymore while you're juggling these other things. And so I just think, just be open And then it's been so fun for us. We've had a couple of sets of friends that we never even knew until we were in this time. And it just it felt right because we were intentionally praying like, Lord, who do you want us to be friends with? Because we want to learn from others. We want to, how are you doing this
Yeah.
with your kids? And to be intentional, but to also maybe lower expectations. Um, Especially when some of your best friends are going through hardships. If you have friends that are taking care of aging parents and they can't see straight because of all the grandkids, you just got to be there for them. But maybe you got to lower expectations and then offer more what you can when you can.
Yeah, no, that I love hearing saying that. We have some friends. There's 4 couples. And we actually have been to Hawaii together. We've done some things together. So we're really close and we've known each other since before we had kids, kind of a thing. But what's fascinating about it is we don't see each other on a day-to-day basis. And in fact, one of them texted me this week and said, "Hey, can you want to do dinner on Saturday?" Just spontaneous. This was, Friday night. I said, "Sorry, Kathy and I are speaking. We're out of the area." But some those are such special times and, yeah, we're not trying to meet with them every week for accountability and prayer. We meet with them on a somewhat regular basis, and we always celebrate never on the day, but we'll celebrate around Valentine's Day or always around Christmas and things like that. This group gets together
Mhm.
and, we call those our replenishing relationships. I think everybody, whether it be in the empty nest or not, we need replenishing relationships and kinda
Yes.
flee from toxic relationships.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I call them VDPs. I talk about this on this podcast all the time. Very draining people or very inspiring people, and I think in the empty nest, you have a chance to kinda say, "Wait, we're gonna reinvent how we do friendships," and I love what you and Gordy are doing, and I love how you just explained that. So, it's a great model for us. Um, Spouse friendships. Kathy and I probably in the empty nest have become better friends. I didn't see that coming, but it was because we played together. We have more
Us
fun
too. I
together. Yeah.
agree. Another couple words that come to mind are the friends you have right now, listeners. I would ask you to ask yourself, are they refreshing?
Mm,
Are they safe?
mm,
And are they people that you can relax with?
so good.
And, we spent a lot of our times, we had to do some corporate dinners and some things, many years ago that were like, okay, you got to get ready.
Right, right.
We got to make sure we're doing all this right. And it's so refreshing now to be like, we were so tired last night and we had dinner set up with some of our very best friends. And I said, you know what? I can go to their house and be tired and
Yeah. Isn't
and
it
just
great?
be authentic, and they're relaxing, they're refreshing, you come
Yeah,
away, like you said, replenished. If you don't have that, the Lord, great things come from pruning.
yeah.
And when the Lord prunes things, it allows the roots to grow deeper, and you can absorb a whole lot better things if you just prune out some things that, you don't need.
Oh, I love that. Great things come from pruning. Man, I'm taking notes on you today,
Oh,
Charlotte.
good. Well,
Um,
I've taken many notes off you.
so good. I said at the beginning I was smiling because you were coming on to the podcast. Well, I'm smiling because I'm thinking of the people who are listening right now and who are getting so much from it. On your website, we don't have much time left, but on your website, charlotteguest.com, I was just on it. I was on it the other day, and you offer a free what you called a mission quest worksheet, and it's helping people find meaning, mission, and even ministry in the empty nest. It really is good, and it's an important process, and I know it's even a free download, but tell us what that's all about.
Well, I think I was in my early 30s and juggling 3 kids not very well, a job, tired, and I had this precious mentor that I mentioned several
Yeah,
times, Shirley Stairs,
yeah,
and she poured into all of us, and she taught that class. And her
mm,
thing was, so many of you are working for companies and you're helping them develop their mission statements, and we see all this, and a big buzzword many years ago was, what's your vision, what's your mission, and
yeah,
that's still out there.
sure.
But she said, girls, even those of you that are staying home raising these young children, you need to have a personal mission statement
Mm,
that will go with you throughout your life.
yeah,
And I loved this class that I
yeah,
took from her.
that's neat.
And when she was headed to heaven a few years ago, she said, Charlotte, I want you to
Mm,
repurpose this and I want you to get this out there.
mm,
And so, listeners, what I'm able to offer is what I learned from Shirley. And it's a small little few worksheets
yeah,
basically to remind you that your life is so full of meaning. And so there's a little bit of time in the worksheets of just reminding you who you are in Christ. And then you dive into, well, what is my mission? What are my three words? And so this will help you find out what your three words are. My words are abide, enlighten, and brighten. So my mission statement is to abide in Christ, to enlighten in love others, and then to brighten. And I have a nice little poem that I can't think of it right now, and that's okay because it's on my worksheets. But to abide in him, brighten where dim, enlighten in love, family, others, and friends. There it is. So I remembered it. So you might come up with three words that are vastly different from any of your friends, but whether you're at work or at home or in your marriage or in friendships, knowing those words and who you are, it kind of puts a little spring in your step, I think. And so I've had that same mission statement for a long time. And then you take that, and then in the worksheets, you dive in and you think, okay, well, I'm wired this way. So, how could I serve in that? I think empty nesters, I think we all ought to be out serving somebody else at least once a week.
Great. Yeah, that's so good. Wow, that's really good. And, as you abide, you've been enlightening and brightening us. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for all that you do, who you are as a person.
Mm.
Talk about an inspiration. And I'm grateful you were on the program today so much.
Jim, thank you. It's an honor. And I love HomeWord. I love steering my listeners on Empty Nest Guests to HomeWord. I love your books. I love everything that you all are doing.
Yeah.
And you guys are a bright light in the world. So
Well,
thank you for allowing me to share a little light today.
Well, thank you so much. And again, all of the information is on our show notes. Charlotteguest.com can also give you all the information. What a great, great conversation today. Interesting that Charlotte talked about mentoring and a mentor in her life. And I find that most people who thrive in life, they can go back to mentors and say, this mentor taught me this mentor taught me that. I noticed this last weekend, Kathy and I were doing a marriage conference together, and we kept talking about our mentors. And I think we did it in every session, and it really wasn't planned, but because we weren't raised with, great mentors in our family, both of our parents weren't in the church, and we became Christians when we were in teenage years. That's why we are so excited about, youth ministry and teenagers making, important commitments, and we'll always be like that. But it was because of our personal experience. But again, we had mentors, and we went after mentors in every aspect of life. And so, some of you who are just now entering the empty nest, hey, you go find some mentors. And you know what? I hope that at HomeWord we can be somewhat of a mentor to you. And definitely you can go to Empty Nest Guest and get some mentoring from Charlotte. Who wouldn't want some mentoring from her? And that's the beauty of podcast and media today. Hey, before you go, I just want to give you a couple of quick thoughts. I was going to tell you a story. It's a real quick story. So when Kathy and I dropped Heidi off, I talked about it at the beginning. We were making target runs and all this, and then all of a sudden we had entered the empty nest as we were driving back. Right, we didn't talk for about 45 minutes, not because we were mad at each other. We just were in thought land. And I looked over at Kathy all of a sudden, and she had a tear going down her cheek. And I said, "You all right, babe?" And she said, "Well, to be honest, no, but we don't really need to talk about it right now. Gosh, it's a new phase for me." And then a little later, I said, "Hey, do you want to stop in Santa Barbara? We love Santa Barbara, California." And I said, "You want to stop and get a bite to eat?" We were driving from Central California on the coast to our home in Dana Point, which is in Orange County. And she said, "No, let's just go on home." I went, "Boy, that's unusual." Not that I'm the eater. She's not, but she likes Santa Barbara. So we get home and we just sat at the kitchen table and we just kind of went, whoa, what are we going to do now with the rest of our life, so to speak? And what we realized, we started adding up things, and we became empty nesters later in life compared to others. And actually, the boomerang kept coming back for us because our kids were coming back. They did 8 times, but who's counting? Um, but fascinating enough, what we realized was we needed to reinvent our life and kind of recalibrate it. And so we had to do some work at that. And I wrote this book called Finding Joy in the Empty Nest. And actually, there's a number of principles, but I want to give you 3 just in closing. Principle number 1: when your child leaves home and their life fills up with fresh experiences, follow their lead. right? Your kids are leaving, and that should be a joyous time, not just such a sad time, but it's a sad, joyous time if you do it right. But since they have new things going on in their life, then follow their lead. It's exactly what Charlotte talked about today in terms of, kind of reinventing. What are you going to do with this time that you have? And you don't want to waste it. You don't want to scroll on social media, or, just bury yourself in work. What you want to do is now, you have the time to get in shape. You have the time to maybe take more trips. You definitely have the time to do date nights with your spouse if you're married. If you're single, you have time to work on your friendships, maybe join a Bible study, those kinds of things. Secondly, is reinvent the relationship with your adult children. So you've got to put time and energy into this. If you're going to go into the empty nest, you just became a parent of an adult child. And your adult children don't know how to be adults, and frankly, most of us didn't know how to parent adult children. So you've got to put some time and energy into that. Lean into it. Change the relationship. Reinvent it. You were parenting a child, and now you're a parent of an adult, so you treat them differently, and you can sure learn more about that in lots of different ways. And then thirdly, if you're married, then you've got to rekindle the romance in your marriage, and this is the time. If you say, well, we've lost that romance, well, then fine, find it. In terms of being intentional about it, what I have found is that friendship, has nothing on fireworks when it comes to romance. And so as you develop your friendship, guess what comes back? The romance. It's there. It may be hidden, and some of the joy and spontaneity of your relationship, but it doesn't have to be hidden. Now it can come up to the surface, and you really can have a second half marriage that's, incredibly important. So anyway, those are just some thoughts today. Thanks so much for listening. I hope that you'll subscribe to the new podcast. It's a new podcast, and leave a comment. Hey, also, if you'd like, you can call HomeWord with Jim Burns voice line. You'll actually hear my voice, but I won't be listening to it. You can leave a message. You can leave a message. You can leave a comment. We love comments, good or bad. Hopefully you'll be nice. And also you can leave a question. If you leave the question, make sure it's short and concise. We're just about ready to do a program just with Q&A, and I'll do the best I can to answer your questions, but keep it concise. We can't put the whole novel on the program, of course. So anyway, that's the voice line. And again, that phone number is 949-485-3905. And if you have any questions on it, it's in your show notes as well. Again, thanks for listening, and thanks for being a part of the HomeWord broadcast. And I just want to give a shout out to Evelyn and Ricky Chacon. They said that they've listened to every podcast so far. They're in Guatemala City, and I'm looking forward to actually being with them in June, speaking at their amazing church called Vida Real. We'll talk to you soon. God bless. HomeWord with Jim Burns.